Hello and welcome to today's lesson. We're going to be looking at how to use the TI-30XS Multiview Calculator by Texas Instruments to help you out with some of the problems that are in the special right triangles lesson in the Study Island Geometry section. So you're going to need to know your rule triangles for 45, 45, 90 and 30, 60, 90, which I have written down here. Remember, the legs of a 45, 45, 90 are going to be the same number, and then the hypotenuse is the leg times the square root of 2. And then 30, 60, 90, your short leg is going to be across from 30, and your long leg is going to be across from 60. So the short leg is just x, and then the long leg is the short leg x times the square root of 3, and then your hypotenuse is the short leg x times 2. And if you need more of a review of that, please look at my geometry playlist and watch the lesson called Special Right Triangles, and you can see some more examples and more of a lesson. So here it tells us that one leg of 45, 45, 90 triangle measures 9 square roots of 2 inches. What is the length of the hypotenuse? So I look at my rule triangle, and I see that the leg is going to be equal to x. So here I know x equals 9 square roots of 2. Because in my rule triangle, the leg is x, and in the problem, the leg is 9 square roots of 2. So I can say they're equal. So that means to find the hypotenuse, I know that's x times the square root of 2. But now I know that x is 9 square roots of 2. So I'm going to take 9 square roots of 2 times the square root of 2. And instead of knowing how to multiply that out, I can use the calculator to help me. So I'm going to use the parentheses for substitution. So I'm going to have parenthesis 9, and then I have a square root of 2. So I'm going to use the square root button, which is in green. So that means I'm going to have to use the second green button and then the square root button to get the square root to come up. And I have a 2 under there and nothing else. So once I have the 2 typed, I'm going to right arrow out, so I'm no longer underneath the square root. And parenthesis, and then that is times, and I can use times, or I can just use the parentheses multiplication, the calculator knows. And I can do second square root 2 again, right arrow out, so it's blinking at the end. Press enter. And my hypotenuse is going to be 18 inches, making A my final answer. And now I'm looking at another example of a 45, 45, 90 triangle, but this time it gives me the hypotenuse instead of the leg. So I look at my rule triangle, and I see that the hypotenuse is equal to x square root of 2. So I'm going to have x square root of 2 is what my hypotenuse is. And in the problem, that hypotenuse is 7 square roots of 2. So since those are both hypotenuses, I can set them equal to each other. So you might be able to see, okay, well the square roots of 2 parts the same, so that just means this needs to be a 7. So x is going to be 7. If you don't see that right away, or you want to double check yourself, you're going to have to solve for x. So I have x times the square root of 2. The opposite of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide both sides by the square root of 2. And these square roots of 2 cancel, and that's going to leave me with x equals, and this here I can put into my calculator. You see, it looks like a fraction. So I'm going to use the fraction button, which is n over d, and I'm going to press that fraction button. And in the top, I'm going to put 7 square roots of 2. So I'm going to type 7 second square root 2, and then I'm going to down arrow to the bottom and put another square root of 2, so second square root 2. Then I'm going to right arrow until it's blinking clear to the right, so I had to press it twice, and I press enter, and my final answer is 7. So that would mean D would be my final answer. Now I'm looking at examples of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So here it tells me that the shorter leg is 3 inches. I look at my rule triangle, and the short leg is across from 30, so that's going to mean that my short leg is equal to x. So I have x is the short leg on my rule triangle, and it's also 3 in the problem. So here, x is going to equal 3. So, and it wants to know what is the length of the longer leg. Well, the longer leg in the rule triangle is across from this 60, so that's going to be x square roots of 3. And I got that from my rule triangle. So here, to find the longer leg, I know that x is 3, so I'm just going to substitute that in. And so that most likely is going to be my answer, but I can use the calculator just to double check that I can't simplify that anymore. So I'm going to put 3 second square root 3, arrow to the, it's blinking at the end, and press enter. And it doesn't simplify anymore, so 3 square roots of 3, choice C, is going to be my final answer. Number 4 also has to do with a 30, 60, 90 triangle. But this time it tells me that the hypotenuse is 6 square roots of 3. And it wants to know what is the length of the shorter leg. So I look at my rule triangle, and the hypotenuse is across from the right angle, and it's 2x. So I'm going to write down 2x. The problem told me that the hypotenuse is 6 square roots of 3. So since those are both hypotenuses, I can set them equal to each other. And it wants to know what is the shorter leg. So the shorter leg in this problem is x. So it's asking me what is x on that rule triangle. So I'm going to have to solve this problem for x. So I'm going to have to divide both sides by 2. And these cancel, and I'm left with x equals, and if you're not too sure how to do this, we can use the calculator to answer that. So I'm going to press clear. This looks like a fraction, so I'm going to use that fraction button, n over d, and it gives me a blank fraction to fill in. So then I press 6 square roots of 3, so second square root 3, and then I arrow down, and there's a 2, so I put a 2 there, and then I right arrow to the end, and press enter, and that reduces down to 3 square roots of 3 also, which is going to be choice B in this problem. And then one last problem. We have another 30, 60, 90 triangle, but this time they give us the longer leg is 2 square roots of 3 and wants to know what is the hypotenuse. So the longer leg is going to be across from the 60 degrees. So in my rule triangle, the longer leg is x square root of 3. And I'm going to want to set that equal to what the longer leg equals in the problem, which is 2 square roots of 3. So you might be able to look at this and be like, oh, well, the x square roots of 3 part matches, so that means x has to equal 2. But if you don't see that right away, or you want to check yourself, you're going to have to solve this for x to start this problem. So I'm going to have to get square roots of 3, divide both sides by the square root of 3, and they cancel here. And x is going to equal. And so I can use my calculator to do this division for me. So I'm going to press clear, and it's a fraction, so I'm going to press my fraction button, n over d. And the top of my fraction is 2 square roots of 3. So I'm going to type 2 second square root 3, arrow down to the bottom where I need to put in a square root of 3. So second square root 3, right arrow twice to get to the end, press enter, and that simplifies down to x is 2. Here, though, it asks for the hypotenuse. Careful. The hypotenuse here is across from the right angle, so the hypotenuse in my right angle is 2 times x. So I'm looking for what is 2x. I know that x is 2 because I just solved for that, so I can take 2 times 2 here, which is going to be 4. And so 4, choice B, is going to be my final answer. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope this helped you be able to do some of the problems in the Special Right Triangles lesson of Geometry in Study Island. Thank you for listening.